Welcome to Appalling News. I'm Paul Chatto, your host. Just when you thought things might be going our way, one less penis in women's sports, one more critical race grifter uncovered as a fraud, you come across this. It's from the University of British Columbia Faculty of Education, and you realize the invasion of the body snatchers hasn't missed a beat. This is an anus-squeezing promotional video explaining all the things the Faculty of Education feels is important. Everything but preparing teachers to actually educate your kids. The priorities are the usual jaw-dropping nonsense, but I'll let you listen to it first. I'm so anxious.
SOTUBC stands for Sexual Orientation, Gender Identity, Inclusion.
SOGI. Sexual Orientation, Gender, Identity, and Inclusion. So this is a very soggy program.
And what we're aiming to do is to really create an environment in the Faculty of Education that is inclusive of gender and sexual diversity. When we think about preparing educators, we're thinking about that on two levels.
I like how she says when we're preparing educators. Does that mean that they put electrodes on their heads? Would be a fast way to bring teachers up to speed, I think.
We want the teacher candidates themselves to feel included.
We want the teacher candidates to feel included. Well, why wouldn't they? I would imagine that if they've been given the opportunity to do this, they would be jumping for joy. They wouldn't be there unless they are interested. Again, unless you're torturing them and they're there against their will, which I'm not putting it past this organization.
They want to, as our donor Robert Quartermain often says,
Ooh, I'd be afraid to put my kids in his class.
Live authentically.
Oh, they want to live authentically. One of my favorite sayings, living authentically, which is much better than living inauthentically, which could be like Buffy St. Marie, I would imagine.
Deserve to be able to do that in our program. On the other level, they are going to be educators in school settings.
So they're going to be educators in school settings. That is incredibly profound. I think, I'm just guessing, I'm spritzing here, that most teachers teach in school settings.
And so it's important for them to learn how to, really, if this is not part of their own personal experience, to create environments that will be inclusive of the various forms of identity.
Create environments that's inclusive of various forms of identity. How about just teach the class?
There are a lot of implications about LGBTQ community members and their mental health.
Oh, lots of implications with LGBTQ members and their mental health. Well, I actually went through depression. I'm imagining, because I'm not part of this group, that my problems would not be important to the teachers that she's putting through electroshock therapy.
So we're having a look at that in one project. We're also looking at sexual and gender diversity and indigeneity.
Can't you have indigeneity on its own without combining it with sexual diversity? We want people to have a positive space. This is what this really translates to. Kids cannot be challenged.
And looking at some of the ways of decolonizing our curricula.
And looking at some ways to decolonizing our curricula. I love this phrase. I don't understand what it means.
At the same time, removing some of the binaries and sort of heteronormativity.
Losing the binaries in heteronormativity, so which I have no idea what that means. But I do want to talk about this particular symbology. If I'm a kid who are not blessed with being part of this minority caste system, which is what they're actually promoting here, is that either I'm going to ignore it or I'm going to be somewhat annoyed with those individuals who have been put on a pedestal, turned into unicorns, or I'm going to be nasty and snippy, which I've actually heard a lot of kids being even more homophobic and transphobic because of these programs. They feel left out. So I actually think this stuff is doing more harm than good.
The work we're doing with SOTA UBC can't happen alone. So we're working with a number of units and faculties on this campus, on our other UBC campuses, and other campuses across the country. to really examine, to critically examine our practices and our language, our culture, curriculum.
So critically examine their practices, but it's the existing practices. They're not critically examining their own practices. If somebody finds out that what they're doing is not working, forget about it. They're not going to do anything.
Etc., to see if there are ways that we can work together, learn from each other, and try to correct some historical wrongs, as well as some current wrongs.
We're going to smash a few statues and put them into the ocean, and current wrongs, which I can only imagine what they are. To learn more, eduubc.ca, University of British Columbia, Faculty of Education. Wasn't that precious? Now, this is British Columbia, a province that makes Portland, Oregon look like Trump country. Presently, the BC Human Rights Commission is prosecuting a nurse named Amy Ham for believing in biology. So it should come as no surprise to anyone that BC's schools are the absolute worst when it comes to this nonsense. And I think it was either Peter Boghossian or Jonathan Haidt who said that the horrors of this social justice claptrap could be laid at the feet of our teachers' colleges. What else was that video but brainwashing? All our teachers' colleges are infected like this. I would expect Donald Sutherland posted at the door screaming at those not replaced by alien spores yet. These people are fucking nuts. And they're coming for your kids who will not learn a single useful thing, lest a bunch of students drop into fetal positions and piss themselves as a result of the consequences of a competitive environment. Not once did you hear the words excellence or even happiness. Kids can't be happy at school because that might trigger the kids who aren't happy. Excellence and happiness must be decolonized. Everyone must be miserable, like this lot of useless whiteboard marker sniffers. Look at this BC Ed document, Making Space. Teaching for diversity and social justice throughout the K-12 curriculum. That sure makes me confident that we have what it takes to be competitive in an increasingly zealous global market. The Faculty of Ed at the University of British Columbia exists not to create quality educators who will think critically and teach effectively, but self-righteous assholes. And that's the way it is.